let's make a start then. Welcome to the new term, and it's good to see, as I say, some familiar faces as you enter your first delivery year. It's going to be a fairly swift and information-giving session today. We've got some colleagues in from the DFE. We've got Jules Atke, Frank McGloin, and Salika Jawani from the DFE, and then also colleagues who you should recognise from AOC. The department will be giving an update first of all, and then Steve will give some information about how the programme is going to run this year. You'll find that there are some new elements to the support being offered, and some additional resources that you'll be able to access. Please do make full use of the chat function and ask questions as we go along. We've got a bit of the session today for a kind of panel questions and answers. So make the most of this opportunity if you've got anything really pressing that's come up in these first couple of weeks of term. So you'll get the dates also for the support that you're going to have this year for some of the events and just other sort of key information. Okay, in terms of housekeeping, you're all on mute. If we can keep that going while presentations are happening, that will save us on bandwidth and makes things nice and quiet and effective. You're welcome to turn your cameras on. We do like to see you. So feel free to turn your cameras on, and we are recording this so that we'll share that with you after the event, along with all the slides, of course. So hopefully there should be no objections to that. Okay, I'll just start off now then with an introduction from the DFE. Over to you, Jules.
Great. Could I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the T-Level Transition Programme. My name is Jules Atke, and I work on the Transition Programme team here at the DFE. We're really pleased to be working with you again this year. And this is, of course, the year when all the planning and preparation you did last year comes to fruition. And we look forward to hearing from you and via the AOC about your progress. So what's going well, and sometimes what's not going so well, and what lessons are being learned from your experiences. As you deliver your programs, the AOC will support you to deliver your programs within the parameters of the Framework for Delivery and the National Technical Outcomes. Within those parameters, we've ensured there's still plenty of flexibility to design the programs to best suit your students. Please do let us know if any aspects of the program are proving particularly challenging. AOC will also be supporting you to maintain a focus on progression to T-level, since this is, of course, the core purpose of the T-level transition programme, and also to develop your programmes further where needed to ensure they provide solid preparation for T-levels. Please do take full advantage of the AOC support programme. As you know, they're an extremely knowledgeable team with lots of experience of supporting providers to deliver successful programmes. Next slide, please, AOC colleagues. So we've put in place a number of resources to help you deliver strong programs. You're hopefully already familiar with the Framework for Delivery and NTOs and the resources that we publish to help you develop your route-based projects and work experience components. Please do continue to use those to guide delivery of your programs. I've just referred to AOC support. Please participate in as much of the programme as you can. I'd also encourage you to continue to refer to the evidence, lessons learned and good practice materials we're building on the programmes. So for example, these include the findings that we published in summer of qualitative research conducted with round 1 providers, and also a quantitative assessment of student views. These publications contain lots of useful information and lessons learned to feed into your programmes. And that's all from me. Thank you, AOC colleagues.
Thank you very much, Jules. Just unmute myself a little late, as if I haven't been using this thing for the last 100 years. Over to Steve now to give a welcome from AOC and tell you about our programme of support this year.
Thanks very much, Paul. Yeah, it's nice to be back. It's nice to see some familiar names, and we look forward to supporting another year of providers. So this time the year is of you delivering your first T-level transition programme, as opposed to last year where you were planning. Obvious things which will come up, and we'll talk about these just in a little bit. Will obviously be the framework for delivery and the national technical outcomes, terms which you shall be overly familiar with now, and by the end of the year we'll probably be reciting them in your sleep. So in terms of familiar faces, we have some familiar faces on the screen for you too. So this is the team of advisors who will be supporting. So this is the team of T-level and T-level transition programme advisors. So you should be able to spot your one somewhere there, and they'll be there with you for this year to support you in your first delivery year. Paul, if I could just have the next slide, please. Thank you very much. So the support that we are going to offer this year in your first delivery year of the programme, as I said, you will have your dedicated advisor, and so the advisor will be that key point of contact that you have throughout the programme. And the support programme will run from now right through to the summer, so July, August in 2023. So your T-level advisor will keep in touch regularly through a series of KIT meetings to support your package and help you to overcome any barriers faced in the implementation of your new T-level transition programme. They'll be able to offer advice and guidance drawing on existing good practice, particularly to overcome any barriers which you face during the implementation. So remember, you are classed as round 3 providers, so we have done the same with round 1 and the same with round 2s. So we have a wealth of knowledge picked up from these previous rounds providers that we're willing and welcoming to share with you, particularly to overcome any barriers which you come across. So one of the meetings, one of the KIT meetings will be a face-to-face meeting. So we're looking for 3 KIT meetings throughout the year. One of them will be face-to-face and the other 2 will be online. If you particularly request for an additional face-to-face KIT, then we will do our very best to accommodate this for you. As with last year, you'll be invited to a variety of events, including a national learning event and webinars. So the webinars, as it suggests, will be online, but the national learning event will be face-to-face, and this will be an opportunity for all round 3 providers to come together to share their delivery experience and to learn from each other. And there will be presentations from people from previous waves and to learn from previous wave providers too. So I do strongly urge, once you get a notification of when they are, to try and send somebody to come to that. Other events which the AOC will be running will be peer networking opportunities, and that will be set up and facilitated by your AOC advisors. These network meetings have a particular focus on bringing together providers who may have similar implementation approaches or similar characteristics, and it's bringing them together. So as with last year, there is an expectation that providers attend or send a representative to as many events as possible, to all events ideally, and we look forward to meeting you virtually or in face-to-face in some of these events as the year progresses. Additionally, we send a monthly newsletter which contains useful information, which has provider spotlights, provider case studies, messages from the DFE and general messages from the AOC. Now, hopefully last year, many of you received the newsletter and found it useful. We have made a slight change to the newsletter this year because we have included for the first time some T-level messages as well as T-level transition program messages. So there will be some T-level messages there too. If you don't already receive the newsletter, then towards the end of this presentation, there is an email address that you can send an email to or contact your advisor from last year and say, can you be included into the circulation of the newsletter? When you receive these slides, you will obviously have the links and you'll be able to click on the link to get to the email newsletter. In addition, we have our Padlet, which is continually updated with new resources. And again, when you get the slides from today, the link on Padlet resources will be active, and that will take you directly to the Padlet. And I do urge you to use the Padlet and to share that link with your colleagues so that there could be a crucial piece of information that somebody could just access, which could just unlock a barrier or a challenge that they may particularly be having. If I could have the next slide, please, Paul. So midway through your planning year last year, and so the focus of the second half of the planning year will have been on the framework for delivery, and the DFE published the framework for delivery in December 2021. And this gave providers a welcome advice and guidance on what should be contained within the T-level transition programme. If you haven't already read the framework for delivery, and I would suspect that you probably all have on many occasions, but if you haven't read the framework for delivery, then I strongly urge you to do so, as it does outline the expectations for the T-level transition programme and also explain the different components that are involved within it that you'll be planning and implementing as you go through. Within the framework for delivery, the Department for Education published its national technical outcomes. And again, these are to be implemented from September 2022, and your last year's advisor will have been working with you in your planning to ensure and to sort of discuss with you how you're planning on covering the technical outcomes. As the name suggests, they're a set of milestones that all students finishing a T-level transition programme should be able to demonstrate. And the technical outcomes were designed with the T-level as a line of sight. And in that respect, by covering the national technical outcomes, it's going to be that these students that have done so will be able to, it will aid their progression to and their success on to the T-level. If I can have the next slide, please, Paul. A familiar diagram to you, no doubt. We like to call it the donut diagram. But as you are the first cohorts of providers to deliver, or amongst the first cohort of providers to deliver the new framework for delivery, I thought it would be useful just to reinforce the key messages from the framework. So this slide and the next slide are to remind you of the focus maybe on the wider aspects of the T-level transition programme. And as I said, this diagram and the next diagram should be relatively familiar. So this is to remind you that when you're delivering, and particularly when you're reviewing your programmes, that you keep a focus on the knowledge, skills and behaviours too. So it's not just getting students passing qualifications or getting students to do their English and maths, a technical qualification. It's looking at these wider skills and behaviours that the students, if the students can cover, if you do this, then it's going to help you to ensure your students are as prepared as they possibly can be in order to progress to the T-level and also to stay on the T-level and have success on the T-level. So the 5 areas, as the donut diagram suggests, is English, Maths and Digital, skills for successful study, knowledge and skills for the workplace, industry relevant technical knowledge and skills, and positive attitude and behaviours. So, this is a diagram we have referred to many times last year. So this really is a reminder of here are the things which you should be thinking about alongside the content of your programme. Paul, can I have the next slide, please? This is another diagram which you will have seen on a number of occasions previously. And this one is just, it reminds us of what the 6 components that are involved in the T-level transition programme actually are. So English, Maths, Digital, experience of the workplace, technical knowledge and skills, personal development and enrichment, diagnostics and monitoring and guidance, and pastoral support. But I think for me, the big thing of this diagram is the fact that it indicates that not one component of the T-level transition programme should be hugely more larger in size in GLH than any of the other components, and that they all interlink, so that the idea being that the programme is delivered holistically, that there's links between English, Maths and Digital and technical knowledge, there's links between experience of the workplace and personal development, so that all these programs, all the parts of the programme link together to give one holistic programme. So, this diagram, this is what we're aiming for, what we're trying to support you with in terms of designing and continuing to work with you on your programme. Paul, if I can have the next slide, please, and then the next one. So, in terms of what happens next, obviously, as part of your early focus this term, so you've been back to 3 weeks with students, so I should imagine the early focus is going to be on the diagnostics and confirming that the correct students are on the programme. And as a result of the diagnostics, if there are any need for changes that occur or changes to the plan of the programme as a result of the diagnostics, these can be discussed with your advisor, either at your first KIT meeting, or if there's things which you think actually we can't wait till the first KIT meeting, I'd like to speak to somebody, then please do reach out to them and they will get back to you as soon as they possibly can, and they can get on a call with you and start to offer the support. So by focusing on the diagnostics in the first term and by using that evidence, it will also help you to feed back to your senior managers on the implementation of your T-level transition programme, and to ensure that this is a strategic priority and that the regular updates are shared at the senior management or senior leadership meetings. I think the other thing that it will do, as a result of the diagnostics, it will allow you to confirm and therefore aid you in your recording of the T-level transition programme students on your ILR or your school census, ensuring that you're using the correct T-level transition programme code to identify these students. In addition, other priorities which you shouldn't forget about because you've gone into implementation is thinking a year ahead. So, when we started the planning year last year, we were always thinking a period of time in ahead. So if you're making changes for as a result of your diagnostics, or if you're making changes mid-year, then these things need to be communicated to the people's internal and external stakeholders. They need to be communicated with your IAG staff. They need to be communicated with your staff that do student interviews. They need to be communicated with your learners, your feeding schools, and your employers too. So anything like that, any changes that you make, just bear in mind that you're always thinking a year ahead. Your recruitment probably for next year, if it hasn't already started, it will be starting very, very shortly. So, keeping these key messages fresh and making sure that the key staff know these messages is important. Next slide, please, Paul. So, in terms of dates for the diary, and your advisor will speak to you more during the KIT meetings, and we'll put out information through the newsletter for the dates. But the KIT meetings will take place in 3 KIT meetings. They'll take place basically in each of the terms. So term 1 before Christmas, term 2 February, March, and term 3 May and June. As I said previously, the KIT meetings, we're looking at one of the KIT meetings to be face-to-face and the other 2 online, unless you as a provider says requests for an additional face-to-face KIT meeting. There will be additional webinars in November, January and May, and there will be peer networks in November, February and May, and there will also be 2 national learning events in November and April. So we will send that information out to you through the newsletter, through your advisor, so that you can start to block these times out and book them into your calendar. In addition, we have the technical focus groups again, and although many people are now delivering, there will be two sets of people within your institution, because although some people will be delivering, some people will be starting planning, because some of the new T levels will be coming on board, and you may be introducing new transition program routes from next September. So there will be, again, through your advisor, there will be some technical focus groups, and these are primarily designed at curriculum staff rather than strategic leads. So they'll be targeted at curriculum staff to help them devise, as the name suggests, the technical component and the technical aspects of the T-level transition program. And some of them we will contact, as I said, we will give clearer guidance, but some of them will be focusing on planning and which transition programs are still being planned, and some will be focused on lessons learned from the delivery aspects. So these will be organised at a route level to allow the curriculum staff to take an active part in. When we are when we're publicising the events for you, we will try to identify the particular role in the institution which we think would be best and who would get the most out of that. So we'll have some events which will be for strategic leads, we'll have some events which may be for marketing staff, we'll have some events which may be for quality staff. As I mentioned about the technical focus groups, some events will be for curriculum staff. So we're looking at not expecting one person from the institution to be turning up to each of these events. There'll be people who are more relevant to do so, and that way it shares the commitment amongst many other people. Paul, can I have the next slide, please? Finally, from me, and as I mentioned earlier, if you have any questions or queries, then please contact us at the AOC at transition.program@aoc.co.uk. This is a generic email. Everyone in the team that I showed you the pictures earlier has got access to that. So if you do have any questions, or if you want to be included in the circulation for the newsletter, anything like that, then please do drop an email and somebody will get back to you soon afterwards. That's all for me, Paul. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Steve. Let me just add a couple of things. The newsletter, I think, should be dropping into your inboxes perhaps even this afternoon. Is that correct, Sarah, or tomorrow? But anyway, it's imminent.
It's already been sent out.
It's already been sent out.
Yeah.
So somebody in your organisation should have the newsletter. If you would like a copy of it yourself, they do drop us a line. You can put a note in the chat. If any of you used our Padlet last year, don't think that it just stays the same. Come and go and have a look at it. Becky Hunt on the team has done a fantastic job in making it much more user-friendly and visually attractive, and we've sort of rationalised, grouped some of the resources so they're a bit easier to find. So go and have a look on there. In terms of new resources, we have a series of video case studies that will be released excuse me, over a period of time. First one just about ready to go live. So these are really great things that you can use as engagement tools, or for publicity or what have you. And then I suppose finally I'd say that in terms of going out and visiting you last year, that was really excellent for us. Really beneficial for us to see you in your natural habitats, as it were, and to really get a sense of how your students are engaging with transition programs and T levels. I would just say, let's see how we can just maximize our visits. Is there an opportunity? Would you like us to present to some senior managers, or present to the staff team, IAG, just to give a different voice to talk about transition programs and T levels? So have a think about, if we're coming to visit you, how we can get the most out of that time. Oh, I said finally, but there's one final thing. In terms of events, we're going to be moving on to Eventsforce, so it'll be easier to book and to plan in advance. We're aware that that last year perhaps we didn't give you quite enough notice for some on some occasions. So we've remedied that by moving on to events force, and during the first kit, your advisor will talk you through that process. And you'll also find that we're going to move some of the events to a much more regional model. So we'll have events across the north swathe of the country, across the centre of the country, and across the south of the country. Some of you may have been kind enough to host events for us last year, and if any of you would like to offer to host events for us again this year, please just leave your name in the chat, and we'll get back in contact with you, or email the transition program, and we'll get in contact with you. There was some really excellent events at other providers last year where people could come together and had a good tour of facilities and that kind of thing. Fantastic networking opportunities. Okay, that's my addendums done there. So Q&A time. You have an opportunity to pick the department's brain, to pick AOC's brains, to ask questions of your peers. I might open up with a sort of question to yourselves, really, and see if anybody wants to talk about this or ask me questions about this. Just wondering how your numbers have been so far for enrolment. Are you running the transition programs that you'd intended at the end of last term? Have you had to put more courses on? Have you had more demand than you were expecting? That would be something I'd throw open to the group for any thoughts, any comments. You are all very quiet today. Okay, I've seen some numbers come on. Jason, that's JCB Academy, at 9 on transition and 35 on T-level. Excellent. Which just remind me, Jason, which transition that you're running? Engineering manufacturing, yes. Makes sense. Anything that Steve, that you'd want to kind of add, thinking about what's came out of our end of year report, perhaps, with anything to consider going forward?
No, I think just we'll be interested in the kit meetings to have discussions with providers on their the final decisions that they made in terms of their programme, and I know our department colleagues are interested in how the providers are covering the national technical outcomes and identifying if there's any gaps, how they're filling the gaps, and so on. I know we're going to be interested in hearing. I mean, the last kit we did was in June, so we still had 6 weeks or so before the summer holidays, and a lot of the planning was done in that final 6 weeks. So it would be interesting to catch up and find out how these were going. So, and I suppose just then a question to everybody, if they can just put it in the chat, how has the year started in terms of how are things going?
So Kathy has said that they've got slightly lower numbers than usual, 11 on transition and 13 on T-level for education and childcare. Stephen Purcell, I'm not sure where you're from, Stephen, but some pretty good numbers across electrical, carpentry and plumbing, 17, 22 and 18. Oh gosh, good, yeah. Okay, so here's an interesting, Karen, I wonder if you might want to sort of mention what you're saying here about the foggy area. This looks interesting. Karen Flanagan.
Hi, it's actually not Karen, it's Nicole, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, I think we have a bit of an issue that we used to let kids onto the BTEC level 3 if they were missing maths or English. And those learners, some of them have now ended up on the transition program, particularly in business and in health and social care. And they're now realizing, of course, that some of their friends got onto the level 3 program, and that's quite an interesting conversation. Whilst in the T level 4 construction, I don't run the BTEC anymore, so they're clearly, you know, either transition kids or T level kids, but I have upgraded 2 kids already from the transition to the T level because they were simply too good and just missed a paper in maths. So they'll be sitting in November, and they're amazing. They're ready, almost ready to go out. So yeah, that it's quite, I find it quite interesting. Maybe it's because it's East London and what's going on in the schools, but I'm sure it's a national picture. It's not so easy to make those decisions. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
I think that kind of mirrors to some degree what we see in some of the other providers too. So, you know, there seems to be, for some providers, a difference between level 2 students and T-level transition program students, with the transition program students being at a slightly higher level, or being at a higher level than the level 2 study program students. Then I think the same is mirrored on level 3, and I think providers are noticing that T-level students are at a higher level than traditional BTEC or vocational level 3 students. So in effect, you're looking at your T-level transition students and your potentially your BTEC level 3 students as not being very, very dissimilar, and it might just be 1 grade difference in a GCSE or something like that, which might actually make the difference. So we see that quite a bit, Karen, in terms of the that sort of distinction. You know, the transition program being a kind of level 2.5 and the T level being a kind of level 3.5.
Yeah, that's definitely our experience here, particularly with health science, those ones.
Thank you.
So, I mean, I suppose the main difference then you'll find is that obviously your T-level transition students will have 3 years at the provider, whereas your BTEC level 3s will have 2. But you know, the line of sight towards their next steps will still be the same in terms of just spending another year there.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're cross about. You know, do I really need to stay that extra year? So that's what we're discussing at the moment. We're going back home through every learner at the moment to identify should they move into a BTEC, or are they not better on the transition with the opportunities afterwards for the T level.
And I suppose
I managed the construction one, and then I can see, you know, mine are all getting apprenticeships offered now, and that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the other thing that you would just say about your transition and your BTEC level 3 is sometimes your transition program students are are a transition program student and not a level 3 student, not because of their academic qualifications, but because of they're not quite ready in terms of the skills wise, in terms, you know, in communication skills or study skills and stuff like that. So it might be that the transition program student is still better for these students because they've got that year without the pressure of trying to achieve particular academic grades, maybe, but they can just spend that year developing themselves. Yeah,
that's the case as well. We're just going through them bit by bit and making decisions.
Brilliant, thank you. Kathy Smith's mentioned that they've got 16 on their other level 3 qualification. That's not going to be, obviously, that won't run next year. So hopefully numbers will pick up. It's going to be interesting to discover from everyone how you are managing that switch off of other level 3 qualifications across the year, and what sort of feedback that you're getting. So I think that'll be something of a theme that we return to throughout the kits. Okay, if there are no other questions right now, let's move it on to our poll sort of survey. You'll see one's launched there, and if you could just complete those for us. If you have any questions, or you wish to sort of ask a question more directly without everybody else in the group, please stay. But once you've completed the poll, you're free to leave. I'd like to thank you very much for your attendance. As I say, great to see some familiar faces and familiar names, and we're really excited to see how that great planning that you did last year is going to come into fruition this year and lead on to successful transition programs that are going to have a whole group of students ready to move on to T-levels. So that's that from me. I don't know if Steve or the department have anything they want to say in conclusion.
No, just to echo, it's exciting. This is the first year that the new framework for delivery and the technical outcomes, the national technical outcomes, have been run. So yeah, I think everybody's just eager to find out how it's going.
Perhaps a free run at this year without lockdowns and what have you. I'm going to touch wood on that one. Brilliant. So thank you very much. As I say, once you've finished the survey, you're free to leave. If you want to wait and ask questions, please feel free to do that as well. We'll be